Okay, folks, it is the top of the hour, so we'll go ahead and get started. It looks like people are still kind of streaming in, but no big deal. We won't get too deep into things for the first minute here. My name is Andrew McLean. I am a technical account manager here at Sumo Logic. Been here for almost 4 years. The start of the new year is going to be my beginning of my fourth year. Beginning of my fourth year, maybe beginning of my fifth year. I don't know. Anyway, been here a while. Today, I'm excited to share with you some of our newest offerings in observability. Right now, you can see my video. When I switch to the screen view, I'll shut my video off because otherwise I'll be staring at my bigger screen that's to my side here. Then you'll just see the side of my face, and that's not very, very nice to see for 30 minutes. Anyway, we're excited to share with you some of the newest stuff we've got going on. We're going to talk about tracing and observability and some of the newest stuff we can do in Sumo with tracing and that. I'll be using a demo environment and actually showing you a demo application that we've built for this purpose. That being said, there is the caveat that this is a demo environment, and so some of the stuff may not 100% go as expected. And also, since this is new, I'm sort of a demo presenter, so I might not go as expected. So hopefully, by the end of the 30 minutes, you'll have a pretty good understanding of what we can do, and there won't be too many bugs on my part. But anyway, we'll get tucked in and we'll turn off the video and get started. We do have a Q&A session open and available. Please feel free to use that. Depending on the flow of the demo and how it's going, I will either answer those in line or we may wait right to the end. It just depends on how in deep I am. So let me start my screen and share my screen and we'll get tucked in. All right, you should now be able to see my screen, and what you're looking at right now is what we call the service map in Sumo Logic. This is actually a new content item that's in Sumo Logic. You can get there from going new service map, just like you would do new log search, new metrics, that sort of thing. And this is the service map for our app that we've created. The app we've created, actually, I'm going to pull it up in the background here, is a little Sumo Logic coffee bar. And everything that's going on with this coffee bar is being sent to Sumo as a trace. And we're going to see later those traces. We're also getting metrics here too. We're getting metrics from our Kubernetes cluster that is running this bar, as well as the AWS backend that is supporting that. So we're sort of getting 3 different layers of data here. And we're going to talk about and show you how you can kind of see through those layers and troubleshoot and do different things in each of those layers. But this coffee bar app is pretty simple and straightforward. I can order myself some coffee, treat if I want to, and pay for it. Obviously, unfortunately, it doesn't work, or I would weigh a lot more than I do because I think I would be ordering these cornettos every hour and stuffing myself on them. But it will kind of demonstrate what you could do if this was a real website and something that was running. So let's go back to Sumo Logic. That service map that you see here, as you can see, this service map has been picked over to my application name. I can look at everything. I do actually have some other things in here, and you can see that they're not necessarily connected. This is another service that's running as a demo that we're working on. So I'm going to limit that to my coffee bar app. And you can see this service map that is basically drawing for me the interconnectivity of my application. This is actually being drawn real time. I didn't configure this. I didn't have to say, hey, this connects to this and that connects to that and this connects here. This is being derived from the tracing data, right? And the tagging we're getting through Kubernetes. So all of this is being derived and built for me, right? I don't have to go make this topology up, which is, I think, a really great feature. And I'll show you a little bit later when we look at the Explore tab, how the Kubernetes topology is also, again, derived from just the setup, right? And you don't have to go in and move things around and make things look like complete and whole to get that whole picture. As you can see here, I have my various services that make up my coffee app. I've got my actual AWS backend, my front end of the coffee bar, some of the other stuff that happens here in the coffee bar app, and you can see that I do have some anomalies. And so we'll check those out here in a minute. I've got my cache checkout, my coffee machine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So my coffee machine is going to make coffee for me. And I've got functions that are going to do some things like inventory. My Lambda functions out here do my inventorying and stuff. So we've got our app, everything's up and running. Let's take a look at some things. So if I drill into where I've got these anomalies, it's telling me, okay, here's my coffee bar app. I drill into that service and it's telling me, I've got some latency, I got 200 milliseconds of latency. I'm having this many requests per second, and I got a pretty high error rate there. I can click on that, on this open in, and I can drop down and open this in all sorts of different things. Let's go ahead and open the traces. And so I'm going to open the traces associated with this application and this service. And you can see here, I've got all sorts of stuff going on here. I've got all my spans, based on the trace. These are my individual traces, and inside those traces are the various spans. I'm going to pick one of these guys that's got quite a few spans in there so we can see what's going on. So if I click on that guy, you can see this opens up my trace with all the spans related to it. Now, one thing you may not know is that I've got actually two sort of levels of visibility here. I have my back end, my traces from my host and all that sort of stuff going on here. I also have my front end. I have my clicks. This is coming through a feature that we just released not very much more than a month ago, I don't think, with real user monitoring. And so this is coming from the actual front end of my application, of my website here. So embedded in my code here is the Rum JavaScript that says, hey, track what's going on here and what's happening here. So you're seeing end to end every interaction with this trace that happened, right? The click here and where we went through in that. So let's see if we can figure out what's going on here. I've got these spans, and the ones with the red on top are error spans. I'm going to drill down a little bit and see where I get to. Let's see on this one here. So if I pop into there, my prepare coffee had an error on it. I can kind of see what's going on. It tells me the span ID, the trace ID, the machine service, all that stuff. If I look here, I have this ability to link to logs with this span ID. Let's see if this actual span gives me any logs. Wait for Sumo to bring those up, hopefully. Oh, look, and we did get a log. So we went and searched for that span ID, and we get the log that's saying, oh, look, no grains, I'm sorry. So what happened with this particular order, this particular trace that we're looking at that errored out, is that I clicked through as the user, or someone clicked through as the user, ordered a coffee, but we got all the way to the machine, and very quickly I was able to drive, like I just showed, that I have no coffee grains. Again, I apologize, the demo environment has a little bit of a slowness here. But you can see that the ease of just being able to drill in, right, and use those traces to drill right to a problem here and figure out and see where your problem is. There they go. So it's telling me, yep, no grains. Sorry, buddy. You can see we got the new order here, and then the next message said, oh, I didn't have enough grains to fulfill that order. Okay, really, really slick and easy way to get down into find that root cause problem of what's going on here with your machine. And you could do all sorts of things with that. You could have an alert that sends out and tells your people, hey, go put more coffee grains in the coffee machine, right? One of the great things that does happen here with all this tracing data is that this is searchable and usable, right? These pieces of data we looked at were actual logs, right? These are actually my standard out logs coming from my my Kubernetes cluster, right? So this is an actual log that I wrote as a out of my code, right? And so I could do things like the normal Sumo things with this. I could extract this log error, and I could create an alert, like I said, that says, hey, whenever I have a no grains issue, alert me, right? If I was even smarter, I would go one step ahead and say, when I get a low grains error or something, alert me so I don't run out completely. But at least I could alert on this issue here, right? But I can also, again, use that trace view to see it. The other thing that happens is that these traces actually get indexed, and they get indexed into an index called trace spans. So I could take that trace ID, grab that trace ID. And I can actually search those trace IDs just like I would normal Sumo stuff. And I might have to blow up my time frame here. Oh, give me a second. Remember I talked about that. Oh, no, I think it's because my service. Take the service out. Oh, come on. Let's try this. I forgot this is an index, and I apologize. That's why my keyword search was not working up above. So I have to actually call out my trace ID down low because keywords don't get indexed, and I was hoping to do it the fast way. Okay, great. So I get all the log messages related to that trace, or all this, I apologize, all the trace data related to that trace ID or any trace ID. And I got all sorts of stuff in here too. I can look at events and kinds and operations and parent span IDs and all this stuff. This is basically the individual trace being sort of logged out like a log message, right? And I can do Sumo stuff with this. I can count by servers, I can count by client IDs, I can do all those great things we do, all the status codes, right? Whatever. I can do all that great Sumo stuff with this trace data. So I'm not just stuck with, with whatever, the proprietary format or whatever that, maybe a different vendor might have for a trace, and not being able to really drill in and query on that trace. I can do that in Sumo with this new functionality. So really great stuff here. So not only can I see it starting from the service map, and I can drill in and I can work my way in and I can figure out what's going on like I showed. I can get to the logs that are related to that span or that, that trace ID based on some of the tagging that I'm getting from my configuration that's pushing those logs also from the Kubernetes cluster, right? And I'm writing that data to a log. But so I'm able to see that holistic thing, but I can also then say, hey, I want to go look at something and work my way in there and drill my way in. So all sorts of great stuff we can do there. So let's look at some other ways we can get access to this data. So we've started at the trace view and then moved in. I want to show you from our little app here. I'm going to actually order something and show you if you had a way to grab those traces. I could go in and grab a coffee here, say I want 3 of those, and I'm going to pay for $8 worth, and I should get a trace ID, right? And so I can even take that trace ID. If I knew a trace ID, if I knew something about that was going on, I can simply open a new traces. I can grab that, and it should be here pretty quick. It should be here by the time I get here. Because of the way that's because of the way it's implemented, I can say trace ID equals my value and hit run. And there we go. And why did my trace ID equals value not work? There we go. For any span, that was my problem. I went too fast. Okay, so I see that trace already, right? That happened within a couple of seconds ago, right? I mean, it really wasn't that long ago, and I can get into that trace now, and I can see that trace just like we did before, where I obviously we knew it was an error, and I could go drill in just like we did and figure out what my error was and figure out what my problem was with my trace, right? So again, knowing trace ID and moving forward, I can go that span that I picked didn't have a log written to it, but one of my other spans will, right? I can look from the back end forward and backwards. The other great thing I can do here, I'm going to just close a bunch of this stuff down just so we don't get confused. In fact, I'm going to close all of this down. I'm going to show you our Explore tab. Our Explore tab is where I was talking about. Our Explore tab, based on how you sort of configure your stuff or structure stuff, you can see all sorts of things here. Currently, you're seeing Kubernetes view. We're going to go back to that, but let me click this Explore by. And if I go down to this application service view, you can see my application here is one of the pieces of topology I can look at. And now I can look at this thing more holistically and more visually, right? I can see my error percentages. I can see what's in here. I can drill into these things and show me all the logs that have to do with this, or maybe show me all the error logs, right? So now I'm going to drill in, and if my logs match error or fail exception, then that's going to work. In this case, they don't. So I can just say, well, show me everything, right? And I can start drilling into logs that belong to my service for a longer time frame. I don't know why that didn't work. Remember, I told you it's a demo environment. The idea is that I should be able to drill in and see those logs and those associated logs through there, right? I'm getting metrics, right? And these metrics are actually being derived from the traces themselves, right? These are trace level metrics, and then it's telling me based on what it's picking up from the trace, my latency and that sort of stuff. My requests per second, my errors per second, all of this is being driven by those traces. And so I can see in there, and I can see which apps are having a problem, and that sort of which services and I'm sort of having a problem. And I can drill into the individual services and get, even deeper, right? And see things like the errors percentage for this service. Obviously my coffee service is having a problem. And, we showed earlier where we can drill in and get that information and get that data. And so I can poke around in here, and I can, again, from a more holistic topology view versus looking at my service map and clicking in, I can come this way too and get more data and such on that. We also have that view and that ability, like I said earlier, to see that real user monitoring here. So because I've deployed real user monitoring, this is the run data that's telling me, very, very similar things, right? It's giving me that latency. It's giving me the requests per second, the errors per second, and that ability to drill in and look at different things. That's my application health. Let's look at my run overview. I get page loads, right? And I get requests per second. I get which browsers are being used, right? I get website performance. This has obviously been faked because it's exactly consistently broken at the same time. But in this demo environment, right, we're showing that, hey, I get performance hits, and I can drill into these timeframes and see what's going on, right? I have traces for those timeframes, right? That kind of stuff. And, I get my UI paintings and that sort of stuff. So I can drill into more and more data about stuff. I can look at my top end for my applications, right? My page load times, my requests, all that sort of stuff. All sorts of great stuff. And all of this is there because I turned it on, right? I didn't have to go in and build these dashboards. I didn't have to go in and set this stuff up. It's there because we built it, because we turned it on, right? Stepping back a step, I told you this is deployed on Kubernetes. So I can actually go look at my Kubernetes deployment view, step back, and you see here I have a namespace or a deployment called Coffee Bar app, right? And so you're seeing the Kubernetes data for my Coffee Bar app, right? And this is how my Kubernetes environment is running, right? What's my average CPU utilization? What's my memory? What's my disk space? All that sort of stuff. I got a pod that's broken out here. I'll tell you that this pod's been broken for a long time, so I don't have any logs to drill into it. If it was a newer pod, I'd be able to show that, hey, I've got some logs that might tell me what's going on with this pod, but this particular pod in this environment has been broken for a while, just to show you that I do get, some indication that something's not happy, right? But I can look at CPUs by namespace and file businesses, all this Kubernetes stuff, and this is all happening because I deployed the Sumo Logic Helm chart to deploy Kubernetes into this environment. I didn't have to configure these dashboards. I didn't have to draw these dashboards. I didn't have to figure this out. It just gets built as part of that. And it's really simple and easy to set up. All sorts of great information and data here, right? And I can, again, drill into the different various components of Kubernetes there with that system. The other view I can have, and again, I could go namespace and all that sort of stuff. The other view I can have is the overall AWS observability, right? And I'm going to click on prod here. This is showing me, hey, here's your AWS deployment, right? So we're now up at this top, macro level of how's everything looking, right? I may have 4 or 5 different apps on my prod AWS observability stuff. And now I'm able to drill out and see, well, what's my account look like, right? What are my requests by API? What are my gateway errors doing here, right? And again, you can drill into these and look at, all error logs, all logs, error signatures, all sorts of stuff. I can look at my error analysis for AWS Lambda, like all sorts of stuff. In fact, let's drill into this guy and see if we get anything here, right? That particular one, that dashboard didn't have anything. So let's go look at something else. Let's see what, I'm gonna go look at all my error logs for API. So this is going to pull my API name, my region, my account, and that gateway, and it's going to show me, do I have any error logs on that actual gateway, right? We'll let that run for a second, and then we'll come back and look at it. So I'm now looking from a top-down view, right? And I can drill in and have a look at that and build it that way too. So all sorts of ways of getting at this data, and it's all connected and interconnected because of the way it's set up. We know the trace IDs because they're coming in from the trace data, and we're also writing those span and trace IDs to our logs, and Kubernetes is serving that all up. And we've built Kubernetes on AWS, and so because we're all sort of connected and we're all tagged together, we know what all this stuff is doing and where it's going, and it gives us that ability to look at all this stuff more holistically, right? One of the other apps we have that unfortunately in this demo environment isn't working as well as it could is we then have the ability to also look at this data globally and say, hey, how does my AWS account compare to everybody else's? Do my requests, more than average, or am I overloading my boxes by putting more requests on them than what normal people do, right? That kind of stuff, and then we can help you sort of tune or your AWS environment. So let's squeak out our data from this guy. Yep. So those are our error messages we got. We looked at that honeycomb and clicked on it, and it's telling me, okay, here's what's going on, and I can drill into these actual log messages that are coming in from my AWS, my CloudTrail logs, and I can see what's happened. And I can see that, maybe what's happened. I got to, this guy's trying to log in and all sorts of stuff is going on there. So, and I can drill into those logs and check things out and that sort of stuff. So, and that just came from this dashboard, right? And just drilling straight through. And so I can go from visual to logs. Again, I can start service map and move my way forward. I can go get a trace ID and move my way backwards. I can get a user ID and account ID. I can move all sorts of different directions through my logs and my tracing data and my observability data to be able to get that holistic picture, to be able to see what's going on, see where things are, and work my way through. So that is the bulk of what I wanted to show you guys today. With a couple of minutes left, we'll open it up if there were any questions. Feel free to type into the Q&A, or I don't know if the chat's enabled or not, but there is that Q&A button there. I promise I won't whistle the Jeopardy theme song. All right, it doesn't look like there's any questions. We're happy that we do have the Sumo Dojo at slack.sumologic.com. You can join there and fire off any questions you've got in there. We're happy to help and happy to answer any questions, but thanks for your time, and we'll go ahead and end the webinar.